So I want to begin with Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand's visit to India, the first in 2 years that we've seen a cabinet minister travel to the country. And we know that the relationship had dropped to a diplomatic low under the previous government. What do you make of this trip so far? We saw Anand meeting with India's Prime Minister.
I can't say how important it is without mentioning the fact that this is really at a critical time for both Canada and India. Canada, as it attempts to diversify its trade and investment, and India is also looking at what kind of role it's going to be playing in Asia and its relationship with China, as is Canada. So I think we have a lot in common, but we have to rebuild the relationship of trust.
And we did hear that also from our South Asia correspondent, talking about the rebuilding of trust being a very important component to sort of thawing the relations between these two countries. And even the Foreign Affairs Minister earlier today, when she took questions from reporters, said that this will be a step-by-step process that will focus first on repairing that relationship and then on to other things. But when we talk about the diplomatic ties, how much is there to rebuild and how quickly could that get done so that trade talks could get higher up on the agenda?
Well, yes, I think it's first of all a question of getting the personnel on the ground. I think that's very important, and rebuilding the infrastructure for diplomacy. Obviously, the business community has to be on side with this, and I think that there is so much to be done in India. India has never figured as large as it should be for Canada, given the fact that we have such a large Indian diaspora in Canada, and given the fact that Canada has quite a lot to offer India. And so it's just going to be a question of how do we rebuild in a way that makes sense. And I think Minister Anand is taking the proper procedures and everything into consideration, and she's being very pragmatic and prudent, which makes a lot of sense.
Part of what's also important to note here, too, is that the U.S. Has imposed tariffs on, of course, both Canada and India. Wondering if that sort of misery loves company attitude may play here in terms of trying to develop stronger ties in order to contend with this other big player that feels like it's taking punitive measures on both countries.
Well, there's no doubt that the U.S. and its actions will have an amazing effect, a transcendental effect, I think, on how Canada approaches other countries, and other countries are doing the same thing. So yes, I agree there is some misery loves company in that, but also I think the reshaping of the world order is going on. And don't forget, China and India were the largest economies for millennia. So I think that is going to be going back in that direction as well. And I think everybody is looking towards how best to approach different types of relationships, whether it is bilateral or just a group of like-minded. I don't know whether we're going to have the kind of big trade agreements that we have had in the past, but certainly on a sectoral basis and on a regional basis, it makes sense for both Canada and India to move forward on that.
Finally, I wanted to ask you about the challenges that there are with this relationship and how to refocus on trade. And of course, part of that is the reason why the relationship soured because of course, the killing of the BC Sikh activist, and that was back in 2023. We heard the Foreign Affairs Minister address that in a question earlier today when she took some questions from reporters, essentially saying that she tried to emphasize the importance of following international law and governance within this country. How challenging do you think that issue will be as these two countries continue to try to work together?
Well, I think just as we were able to overcome some of the issues that we had with China in the aftermath of the Meng Wanzhou incident, and I think we have to be able to build the relationship on different tracks. And I think that is going to go forward no matter what. The question is how fast and how far can we expand given the challenges that we have with India. And as I mentioned earlier, the trust relationship in terms on the security side is very important. But when you look at India geopolitically and Canada geopolitically, we both have so much to gain by working together that one only has to hope that Minister Anand and all the personnel at Global Affairs Canada and across the government, because we have a multifaceted relationship with India, can put something together that makes sense, also following, obviously, global rules, but also what makes sense in terms of our way going forward, what makes sense in terms of developing the kinds of relationships and the all kinds of different at all kinds of different levels. And that will be the challenge, is to make sure that we are bringing everybody. This has to be a whole of government exercise, and also bringing the business community, academic community, all the educational institutions. We have a lot of people that are invested in this relationship, and we'll just have to bring them all together.
Deanna, thank you so much for your thoughts and analysis on this. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was Deanna Horton. She is a Distinguished Fellow at the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada.